I'll never forget the night it happened. I was working my usual shift at the diner, just like any other day. I'm not far from home, so I usually walk back after I clock out. It's never been a big deal until that night. It started like this. It was around 10 p.m., and the place was pretty much empty. That's when he walked in. I still get chills just thinking about him. He didn't just look off, he felt off. There was something about him that instantly made me uneasy. He was tall, probably around 6'4", with greasy, unkempt hair that hung just past his shoulders. His skin was pale, like he hadn't seen sunlight in years. And his eyes, oh God, his eyes! They were bloodshot, with dark circles underneath, and they darted around like he was nervous or looking for something. His clothes were wrinkled and dirty, an oversized trench coat that looked too heavy for the weather. And when he spoke, his voice was low, raspy, like he hadn't spoken to anyone in days. But the worst part was his smile. It wasn't a normal smile. It was twisted, too wide for his face, showing yellow, crooked teeth. He just stood there for a moment staring at me. "Can I help you?" I asked, trying to sound as calm as I could. He grinned even wider. "Yeah, I'll take a burger, cheese." "But raw," he said in a slow, deliberate way that sent shivers down my spine. Raw? I'd never heard anyone ask for a raw burger before. It was weird, but I didn't want to make a scene, so I nodded and told the cook. While waiting, the guy didn't sit down. He stood by the counter, watching me, unblinking. My skin started crawling. I kept busy, trying not to make eye contact, but every time I glanced up, he was still staring, that same unsettling grin on his face. Finally, the burger was ready, and I handed it to him. His fingers brushed against mine, cold and clammy. "See you later," he said. And I swear, I felt my stomach drop when he said it. It wasn't a casual goodbye. It felt more like a promise. I brushed it off. Customers can be creepy sometimes, but when my shift ended, I couldn't shake the feeling of dread that had settled in my chest. I clocked out and started walking home, like I always did. It wasn't a long walk, maybe 15 minutes. The air was cool, and the streets were quiet, too quiet. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up, and that's when I noticed it. Footsteps. At first I thought it was just someone else walking nearby, but the pace was too slow, deliberate. I glanced over my shoulder and froze. It was him. The creepy guy from the diner. He was following me. I picked up my pace, hoping he was just heading the same way by coincidence, but when I sped up, so did he. My heart started racing, and I could feel the panic setting in. Every instinct in me screamed to run, but I didn't want to make it obvious that I knew he was following me. Then, I saw it. In the light of a street lamp, I caught a glimpse of something shiny in his hand, a knife, the long, glinting blade reflecting the pale glow of the moon. I didn't think. I just ran. As soon as I bolted, I heard him behind me, his footsteps getting faster, heavier, pounding against the pavement. I was gasping for breath, my legs burning, but I didn't dare stop. I could hear him getting closer, his breaths raspy and uneven. I turned down a side street, hoping I could lose him, but then I felt it. His hand. He grabbed the back of my hoodie, yanking me backwards so hard I almost fell. My heart was pounding in my ears, but somehow, in the heat of the moment, I managed to slip out of my hoodie and keep running. I didn't stop to look back. I didn't need to. I could hear him swearing, his footsteps still following me. Just when I thought it was over, when I thought I wouldn't make it, I saw headlights. A police car was turning the corner up ahead. I waved my arms, screaming for help. The car screeched to a stop, and the officer jumped out. The man, he just stopped. He didn't try to run or hide. He just stood there, staring at me from the shadows, his hand still gripping the knife. Then, without a word, he turned and disappeared into the night. The officer asked me what happened, and I tried to explain through shaky breaths. They drove me home that night, and I'll never forget the look of concern on their faces. I never saw the man again, but since that night I've never walked home alone. I don't take any chances. I still think about that twisted smile, and the sound of his footsteps behind me. Sometimes when it's late at night, and the wind howls outside, I swear I can still hear him following me.